Merry Christmas! I'm Kat, and Ziggy's over there destroying a toy, so my apologies if you can hear him. I thought it would be really fun to read some Christmas stories in front of our Christmas tree, and I'm going to start with one of my daughter Penny's favorites. It's called Itsy Bitsy Christmas, and it's by Max Lucado. Bitsy, watch out! Itsy grabbed his little sister's tail and pulled her back just in time. The big wagon rolled past and splashed them with mud. Be careful, Bitsy. You don't want to get run over. Bitsy jumped back and gulped. Her big eyes grew even wider. I've never seen Bethlehem so busy, she exclaimed. People everywhere. Wagons rolling, cows mooing, donkeys pulling, and camels. Do you know that camels spit? Bitsy stepped away from the camel nearest her. What is going on, Itsy? Follow me and I'll show you, the older mouse replied. Itsy took his sister's hand and they scampered to the top of the city wall. It is time to count all the people. Everyone has to go to their hometown and sign the big book. Bitsy looked around. This is a big day for Bethlehem. Big day indeed, said a deep voice behind them. Itsy and Bitsy turned. A donkey was talking to them. The mice were on the wall, so they could see him face to face. Whoa, you're big, said Itsy. I've never seen inside the nose of a donkey, he added, peering inside the nostril. Ew-wee, Bitsy offered. Who are you? She asked the donkey. I'm Daniel from a faraway town. Are you here to be counted? No, he said very slowly. I am here because of the king. What? Haven't you heard? The king is coming to Bethlehem. But Bethlehem is an itsy bitsy town, Bitsy explained. Why would a king come here? The king is special. He comes for everyone, big and small. Like us? Itsy asked. Like you. The mice dashed between feet, hooves, and rolling wagon wheels and ran toward their stable. They scurried under the gate, up the stable post, and onto their favorite rafter. From their spot high above the floor, they could see all their friends. Ruthie, the mama horse, was the biggest. Rowdy, the rooster, was perched on the rail. 6 sheep were crowded in the corner. Charlie, the cow, grazed on some hay. Grumpy, the goat, sulked in another corner. He never smiled. He was always mad at someone. Itsy cupped his hands over his mouth and squeaked. Okay, everyone, gather in. We need to talk. No one moved. Bitsy tried. We have big news. No response. Bitsy turned to Rowdy the rooster. Can you help us? Sure, replied Rowdy. I'll have any excuse to make some noise. He leaned his head back. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The animals lifted their heads. Hey, groaned Grumpy the goat. Knock it off. I'm trying a nap. Itsy and I have big news. You're moving? Grumpy muttered. Grumpy, be nice, said Ruthie the mama horse. Itsy and Bitsy, tell us your big news. A king is coming to Bethlehem, to us. No one spoke for a long time. Then Rowdy crowed. A king to Bethlehem? That will never happen. The others snorted, baaed, neighed, and mooed in agreement. Kings come to important places, offered the sheep. And to important people, agreed Grumpy. Not to places like Bethlehem, or to mice like you. Itsy and Bitsy, Ruthie the mama horse spoke up. I'm afraid this place is too common for a king. No king would care about us. Itsy looked at Bitsy. Well, Bitsy and I are going to find the king. Good luck with that, chuckled Grumpy. To see the king, to see the king. Bitsy zipped down the post and out onto the street, but then she stopped. Itsy, where will we find him? Itsy paused for a moment, placing his finger on his chin. Well, let's go where the important people go, to the city gate. Off they went. The leaders of the town sat at the city gate, making decisions. Bitsy spotted a wise owl sitting on top of the gate. Mr. Owl, she shouted, we hear that a king is coming to Bethlehem. Have you seen him? A king in tiny little Bethlehem? You won't find a king here. So the king hadn't come to the wise ones at the city gate. I know, Itsy offered. Let's go where the camels live. Kings ride on camels, right? So the two mice scampered over to the camel corral. Mr. Camel, shouted Itsy, we're looking for a king. Have you seen him? Silly mouse. I've carried some very rich and important men in my day, but I assure you they didn't come here. Kings don't come to common places like Bethlehem. But we talked to a donkey and, never trust a donkey, snickered the camel. Itsy sighed. Where else can we look? Well, let's look everywhere, said Bitsy. The mice ran to the main street where the busy people rushed around. Lots of busy people, but no king. They ran to the hotel where the sleepy people were spent time resting. Lots of sleepy people, but no king. They ran to the city market where the business people worked all day. Lots of working people, but no king. Finally, Itsy and Bitsy began to get tired. It was getting dark. Let's go home, Bitsy, Itsy sighed. Everyone is right. No king is coming for us. We aren't important enough. Bitsy started to object, but didn't. A tear formed on her cheek as they headed toward home. I always wanted to see a king. Now I guess I never will. But when the mice neared the stable, they saw Daniel the donkey, the same one who had told them about the king. Itsy and Bitsy ran up onto the stable fence. We have looked all over town for the king. We couldn't find him. Well, said the donkey in his low, slow voice, you just did. Daniel motioned with his head to the center of the stable where all the animals stood in a circle. The two mice scampered up a fence post and looked. A little baby was asleep in the manger. Who is he? Asked Itsy. He's a king. He is the king, replied Ruthie. Just like you said, a king came to Bethlehem. His name is Jesus, explained Daniel the donkey. God sent him to love us, help us, and save us. He came for me, even though I laughed at you, asked Rowdy the rooster. And for us, even though we doubted you, asked the sheep. And me? I can get cranky, admitted Grumpy. Daniel smiled and nodded his big head. God sent Jesus for us all. Who would have thought, observed Itsy, a king for everyone? A tiny tear of joy rolled all the way down Bitsy's nose. He came, Bitsy said with a smile, even for a little one like me. And then, this is my favorite, Merry Moosey Christmas. By Lynn Plord. Everyone deserves a holiday break. Please, Santa, please, begged Rudolph. Just this once, can't I please have Christmas Eve off? Santa looked skeptical. Rudolph persisted. I've never had a chance to stay home on Christmas Eve and listen for jingling sleigh bells on the roof and a whoosh down the chimney with presents just for me. Santa's heart was as soft as his belly. "Ho, ho, ho," he laughed. "Okay, Rudy, just this once. But first we must find a worthy replacement to lead my sleigh on the most special night of the year, and you must help me train him." And so Santa and Rudolph set off in search of the perfect substitute. "What about him?" asked Santa. "Wrong size," said Rudolph. "How about that one?" Santa pointed. "Too feathery," said Rudolph. Antlers?" asked Santa. "Horns," said Rudolph. Discouraged, Santa and Rudolph flew northward. "Sorry, Rudy," said Santa. "It looks like you won't get Christmas Eve off after all." "Whoa, wait, what's that?" exclaimed Rudolph. They landed the sleigh at the edge of a forest. Rudolph and Santa measured, poked, and probed. "Should do. Would do. Could do. With a little training," they agreed. The moose seemed willing. "What should we teach him first?" asked Santa. "Nose glowing," answered Rudolph. Rudolph stood in front of the moose and made his nose glow. Flashity flash flash. "Now you try it," said Rudolph. "Just think bright thoughts." The moose thought of hot sunny days and car headlights. He grunted, groaned, held his breath, and stood on his head until his face turned red, but his nose didn't glow. "Maybe this'll work." Santa offered a clown nose out of his sack. Rudolph shook his head. "Sorry, Santa, it looks funny and doesn't really shine." The moose held up a hoof as if to say, "Wait a minute," and raced down the road. He was back in a flash wearing a headlamp. "That's not a nose," said Santa. "Shines plenty of light," said Rudolph, "to help you find your way." "It'll do," Santa and Rudolph agreed. "What's next?" asked Santa. "Flying," answered Rudolph. Rudolph took a few flying leaps over the moose's head. "Leapity leap leap." "Now you try it," said Rudolph. "Just think soaring thoughts." The moose thought of gliding eagles and float planes taking off from the lake. The moose stood on his back tippy toes, and flapped his front legs while Rudolph gave him a boost. But he didn't lift off the ground one itty bitty bit. "Maybe this'll work." Out of his sack, Santa pulled a beanie cap with a propeller. Rudolph shook his head. "Sorry, Santa. That looks silly, and it would take a much bigger propeller to lift that big fella." The moose held up a hoof as if to say, "Wait a minute," and raced down the road again. This time he whizzed back with a jetpack. Santa and Rudolph looked at each other and agreed. "It'll do." "What's next?" asked Santa. "Directions," answered Rudolph. Rudolph gave a lecture on the North Star, latitude and longitude, traveling through the time zones, yakety yak yak. "Now you try it," said Rudolph. "Just think guiding thoughts." The moose thought of hunters' compasses and signs telling out-of-staters where to go. The moose pointed north with his snout, south with his antlers, east with his front legs, and west with his back legs. "Maybe this will help." Santa pulled a globe out of his sack. "Sorry, Santa," said Rudolph. "You'll need more detail to find streets and addresses." The moose held up his hoof as if to say, "Wait a minute," and raced down the road. He found his way back with a GPS strapped to his antlers. Santa and Rudolph nodded. "It'll do." "What's next?" asked Santa. Rudolph thought out loud. "Let's see, nose glowing, flying, directions. Seems like there's one more thing, but I can't remember what it is." "Couldn't be too important then," said Santa. "Well, if I think of it, I'll let you know." Rudolph told the moose. "In the meantime, practice, 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 and arrive at the North Pole at dusk on Christmas Eve, ready to go." "Thanks, Moosie," added Santa, giving the moose a pat. Santa and Rudolph headed back to the North Pole, where they were busy, getting ready for Christmas Eve. The moose stayed home, where he was dizzy, getting ready for Christmas Eve. The moose couldn't help himself. He was so anxious. He arrived at the North Pole at dawn on Christmas Eve day. He tried to stay out of the way while Santa, Rudolph, the elves, and the other reindeer finished all the final preparations for the big night. Rudolph stayed with the sleigh until the last second, making certain everything was perfect. "Not having second thoughts about staying home this year, are you, Rudy?" asked Santa. Rudolph gulped a big gulp, and leaned over and whispered, "Doesn't matter if I were. Look how excited the big guy is to have a turn leading your sleigh." "You're right," Santa winked. "But still, it won't be the same without you." Rudolph turned for home before more than his nose turned red. At last, it was time to go. "Giddy up," shouted Santa. The moose soared skyward. Santa ordered, "To Rudy's house first, Moosie. He's been waiting a lifetime for this special night. We mustn't keep him waiting." The moose flew to Rudolph straight and steady. Rudolph had barely been home long enough to set out peanut butter cookies for Santa, his favorites, and blueberry muffins for the moose to make him feel right at home. To his surprise, he heard sleigh bells. Could Santa be arriving already? Rudolph jumped into bed and pretended to be asleep. He listened for the whoosh down the chimney, but instead he heard crash, bang, boom. Rudolph jumped out of bed and looked up the chimney. Santa rolled out of the sled and looked down the chimney. They shouted, "Landings! We forgot to teach him how to do landings." Rudolph hurried onto the roof and helped to right the sleigh. But before he could utter a word on how to do landings, the moose held up a hoof as if to say, "Wait a minute." Rudolph interrupted. "I know, climb in, I'll take you." Rudolph jetted the sleigh back to Moosie's favorite store. "They'll do," Santa and Rudolph agreed. "Hurry, there's no time to waste. Millions of kids are counting on you," Rudolph shouted. Santa snapped the reins and the sleigh lifted off, with Moosie leading the way. And that Christmas Eve, some pretending to be asleep children not only heard jingle sleigh bells and a whoosh down the chimney, but also Merry Moosie Christmas to all, and to all a good night. And then Penny and I agree that this is both of our favorite. We read this one multiple times. Every year, A Magical Christmas Eve by Diane Sheldon and Rosie Reeve. The cookies are baked, the shopping done, the tree is up, the balls are hung. There are cards and sweets and baubles bright. Everything's ready for Christmas night. Nothing moves within the house, not parent nor cat, not child nor mouse. The softest sounds, the faintest light, dark and quiet fill this night. Something calls and something sings, something whispers, something rings. Something rustles out of sight. Something stirs within this night. Dottie Sue sits up in bed. She rubs her eyes and shakes her head. Her heart beats fast. Her head feels light. There's something happening in this night. It's Christmas Eve. There can't be more. But still she crosses to the door. The feeling's strong. She knows she's right. There's something happening in this night. Onto the landing and over the floor, past the room where her parents snore. Down the stairs in the shadowy light. What makes her so restless? in this night. It isn't the tree or the mistletoe. It isn't the gifts tied in ribbons and bows. It isn't the glittering tinsel so bright that sends her softly through this night. And it isn't the wreaths or the silvery stars. It isn't the garlands or long strings of cards. It isn't the twinkling colored lights. There's something different in this night. Cries and whispers, laughter, song, bells are ringing loud and long. Dottie Sue holds Bunny tight. There's something different in this night. Far away a baby cries, sweet angels sing and shepherds sigh. And here the world is all alight, for there's something magic in this night. Beneath the sharply shining stars, creatures have come from near and far. There they dance in the moonshine bright, for there's something magic in this night. She lets the stars and moon spill in and pulls the covers to her chin. Her dreams overflow with pure delight, filled with the magic of this night. Merry Christmas, and I pray that God will bless you all this Christmas season. Have a very magical Christmas.